Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we've got another actually two brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic figures to take a look at today. And as you can see, they are not from the Tyrannosaur series, which is a nice change of pace because we've had quite a few Tyrannosaur series releases on here recently. This is technically a Raptor series release, as we have two different versions of the Velociraptor in 1/18th scale. We have the Velociraptor osmolskae and Velociraptor mongoliensis, so different species of Velociraptors here, now introduced in this, smaller series, the 1/18th scale line. And you can see we've got some gorgeous artwork there for the back of the packaging. You've got the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo, and of course the little window area here where you can see the figures themselves. And then here on the back of the boxes, you can basically see a checklist here of the different, species and figures that are available in the newest wave of these 1/18th scale figures as far as the smaller ones. And you've got a nice little Protoceratops here as well as a Psittacosaurus, so little ceratopsians here in the mix of this round of 1/18th scale figures. And you can see again, you've also got the little card you could cut out basically up there, which shows off the artwork as well as information on both different species of Velociraptors. So let's pop these boxes open and check them out. So here is our Velociraptor mongoliensis, looking really quite nice. Definitely a nice naturalistic paint scheme this time around. We've also got the base, and we'll go ahead and put this on here just for right now to kind of give it a wonderful little pose of it just sitting there. We're also actually going to move the camera down a little bit just so it's a little bit better placed. We also have alternate legs, which is something that's always fun to be able to alter the pose of your raptor figure. Something, it's pretty common when it comes to the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. And then we've also got the osmolskae version, again, with this really cool bluish paint scheme that we have going on for this one. And then the same thing going on as far as having the base. Again, we'll just set our raptor onto there just to kind of give it, a generic pose. It's not positioned correctly or anything like that. And then you also have, again, the legs, so that you could switch the legs out. And there are actually different little connections that are included in the packaging that you can kind of alter the way that this holds your raptor and stuff. So that's always fun to have as well, if you just want to switch it up a little bit more. But again, it's pretty darn cool to have two different versions of the Velociraptor, two different species of the Velociraptor here, and both look really quite honestly awesome, like they always do. It's always so impressive to me how small these figures are, but how highly detailed and how nicely painted they are. Again, they're just very impressive in the overall grand scheme of things. When you take into consideration how small that figure is, that can easily fit within my hand, but how impressive both of them look. Again, immediately right out of the box, absolutely as impressive as it gets. So let's jump to a closer look at both of them right now. So we will begin with the Velociraptor mongoliensis version. And one thing that's interesting about this figure is it's not the first time we've seen it in the 1/18th scale line. We have had a release of this figure previously, but this is the first time we've had it in this coloration. So you now have your choice between two different versions of this raptor that you can add to your collection, because previously we had it was like a light tone mixed with some reds and stuff. This time we've gone the absolute opposite route and given this a lot of dark tones. So we don't really need to go over the sculpt so much as far as this one goes, more so just the paint apps. I will say though, looking at the figure straight away, there appears to be some sort of like a defect on mine, as the lower jaw has extended out further than the upper jaw. So we have a bit of an underbite going on here, and I actually just tried to articulate the jaw, and it is absolutely not moving. So, I don't know if maybe it's just positioned incorrectly on the, figure itself, or what, that it caused it to be out so far. I'll have to try to look into that, work on it after the review is over, and see if I can sort that out and fix it. But you can see, as far as the actual coloration goes, you've got quite a bit of variation of color here in the face, as you have variations of kind of almost like a pinkish tone, as well as, of course, the very dark black coloration that we have for a large portion of the figure. It's almost like a pinkish brown that we have just kind of showing up sporadically here through the course of the face. You can see the eyes are painted with a green, which looks pretty cool. And again, same deal over here. You can see, again, very nice, very careful, very precise paintwork. As you move back here into the neck a little bit further, you can see again a little bit more of that kind of like pinkish brown showing up. Mostly though, we see this blackish tone for a large portion of the body, and you continue to see that as you move back here along the back of the raptor. But as you move down into the arms, you can see it looks like maybe a slightly different variation of a brown, because it looks a little bit darker, more so than the kind of like pinkish brown I see here up in the face. But you can see again that the brown shows up here as you lead down the course of the arm in quite a few different areas, but the feathering here running along the back of the arm for the most part remains that black coloration, and it looks really nice. You can see kind of like a slight sort of satin shine to the figure as well, which definitely helps those feathers shine and almost gives it a bit of an iridescence, which is a nice touch. On the underside of the arms, you can see there is a lighter tone, almost like a light off-white bordering on like a yellow version sort of, and that looks pretty decent as well. You can see the hands sculpted out, of course, and painted. You got the nails painted with a black, so it just kind of fits right in with the rest of the coloration. We have more of that kind of brown running there along the lower part of the black in the stomach region, and then we transition to that lighter tone here for the underside. Bit of a different lighter tone than what we see on the underside of the wings. It's more of a yellow on the underside of the wings, definitely more of an off-white on the underside of the stomach. As you lead back here into the thigh, you can see thigh has that lighter tone running along the front of the thigh, but then we have the darker tone running along the back, almost the opposite of what you often see when it comes to dinosaur figures. You can also see that we have more of that kind of like brownish tone creeping through the lighter tone here that we have on the front, so a little variation of color within that area. You've also got like some reddish brown tones here as you lead down into the calf region, leading down into the foot. But once you reach the foot is basically just black, but you can see the nails are painted with a black that has a nice glossy look to it, so it helps the nails to shine a little bit. And then as you lead up here into the tail, you again have more of those browns and blacks that kind of mesh together and blend together, so quite a bit going on as far as that goes leading out through the course of the tail. And again, considering how small that figure is, it definitely has some very impressive paintwork. And you also have all the articulation you know and love. Again, quite a few joints there in the neck region as you got 1, 2, and 3 moving down the course of the neck just to give it, a little bit of extra articulation. You've also got the midsection, which is very common on beasts of the Mesozoic figures. You've got shoulder, elbow, and wrist articulation as you move down, so you've got quite a bit going on there for the arms. And then almost the same thing for the legs, as you've got hip articulation and knee articulation, but we don't have ankle articulation, which we normally would, but these figures are so small. And then you've also got some tail articulation back here as well. So again, a very impressive amount of articulation, very impressive amount of detail and paintwork on a figure that's so small. Then we've got our Velociraptor osmolskae. So I believe this is the first time that we've seen this particular species of Velociraptor in the beasts of the Mesozoic line. So that's great news straight off the bat. You can see again that we've got a really nice looking head sculpt, nice skin texture there running along the snout. You've got a very nicely painted eye. Look at how well done that is. You've got a darker tone around the eye than a yellow, it looks like, in a black pupil. And considering again how small that eye is, that is crazy impressive and precise paintwork. You've also got some nice light variation of color there in the snout, but you kind of see like the blues meshing with it. And as you move back here into the eye socket, you start to see the blues picking up a little bit more. You've also got variation of blue here on the lower jaw and a darker tone there on the tip of the snout of the Velociraptor. As you move back a little further into the head, you've also got a variation of brown picking up very briefly back there behind the eye. And then as you lead up here to the top of the head, you've got this really nice looking blue, as well as this much darker variation of blue here on the side of the face, almost bordering on a purple. It's so dark as far as that bluish tone goes. You've also got some like white coloration here kind of shining through on the underside. Looks like maybe a dry brushing running down the course of the throat, but they haven't highlighted it too much. It's just kind of like a light dry brushing to give a little extra color variation to the feathers. You see that same thing up here on the back as you lead down the back of the neck into the shoulder and back area here of the Velociraptor. A little bit more of that white coloration there kind of shining back there. And as you move down the course of the neck, again, you have all sorts of variation to the feather detail. I would imagine, though, this sculpt is probably the same as the larger version of this Velociraptor was already released, but just, obviously a much smaller version of it. But as you move down here into the arms, you can see again very nice looking feather detail, quite a bit of variation of color to those feathers as we trade back and forth with different versions of blues. You've got yellow there for the hands, black for the nails. That looks very nice also. Not really much of difference, it looks like, as far as the coloration goes, moving down the underside of the arms, but definitely quite a bit of variation here on the outer side of the arms. And you do have even a little variation of green here on the ends of the feathers there on the arm, just to add a little bit more color variation. And then as you move up here again, you can see how that lighter blue kind of disappears. We have the darker blue for the majority of the stomach region leading back into the thigh. Then we have the lighter blue return back there behind the thigh. You've got more of that light coloration, that light dry brushing there in the back of the calf. As you move down, again, a yellow for the feet with the nicely painted nails, given a nice glossy black. You can see how they shine there as I let the light hit them. And then we lead back up into the tail, and again, as we lead out, you've got a darker tone running down the center of the tail, but then the variation of blue running here out along the edge of those beautiful tail feathers. And you can see we have that kind of lighter blue circling around the darker tone of the tail itself, and then those darker blues as you kind of lead out around the outer edge of the feathers. And then again, just basically the light tone of blue as well as that sort of white dry brushing here on the underside of the raptor. So this version of the raptor also sports the exact same articulation as the one we had just taken a look at, but also again just really beautiful paintwork, a very nice looking color scheme. And you can see the inside of the mouth. This one works pretty well. You've got the inside of the mouth painted with a very dark tone of like a red, and again, for how small this figure is, look at how nicely painted the teeth are. Very impressive considering how tiny this figure is, and that jaw does articulate very, very nicely. So two absolutely awesome new versions of the Velociraptors from the Beasts of the Mesozoic. And then again, you also have the opposing legs, the alternate legs, and you can see these legs are more of like a standing still sort of a leg, or like the leg that you want the dinosaur to base itself on. These legs that are on currently are more of almost like the jumping or lunging sort of a leg, where the raptor might be, you can see the claws actually extended, the sickle claw is extended, so it looks like it's coming in for a kill. So what you would want to do, now if they're a little stiff, you might want to heat them up, but you can usually just pop these right off, and as you can see, that leg pops right off. Let me make sure I have the correct leg. Yes, I do. And then you just take that and you pop it back into that spot, and you now have that leg again, so you can give it really cool poses and stuff like that. Or you can take both of these legs off and just have it standing entirely. You know, again, it's all up to your preference and how you want to pose your raptor, but once you switch the legs out and stuff and you want to kind of get this up on the base here, you can, again, create some really cool jumping poses and stuff for your raptor. And, of course, the articulation of the figures definitely help you to create pretty much any pose you would like and any display you would like. So the switching of the legs is definitely a very nice touch on the part of the Beasts of the Mesozoic. Love that they always give you the options and ability to create pretty much any pose you would like. Now, I don't know for sure if we can get the raptor to stand entirely on its own. I can't recall if I did that with my previous reviews of these 1/18th scale figures, but you can see for sure with at least one arm balanced on the ground, it does stand quite nicely. As far as a size goes, lengthwise, you were looking at a little over 4 inches, not quite at 4 1/4 though, or around the 10.5 centimeter range. And the highest point in this position would be the tail at about 2 inches or around 5 centimeters. The head is about 1.25 inches or around 3 centimeters, somewhere in that vicinity. But of course you can never get, unless I sit here and alter it into every position possible, you're never going to get that exact perfect, you know, amount of measurements for a figure like this, because you can change it all, but depending on the way you position it, the way you pose it. But for a size comparison, now I normally would do quite a few comparisons, but I don't feel like it's necessary with these figures because we have reviewed the Velociraptor before and stuff. So we've already got a pretty good idea of the size of these raptors if you watched my initial review. But, you know, I did want to do at least one comparison here with the 3 that I have been using for so long, as we have Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, standing in here next to the raptors from the Beasts of the Mesozoic, again, the 1/18th scale versions. And you can very clearly see that these figures are very small, again, pretty much as you would expect. So these two brand new 1/18th scale Velociraptors from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line are both really nice. Again, even though I do have a little bit of an issue going on with one of the two when it comes to the jaw, that may just need a little bit of hot water or a hairdryer and that should start working. But other than that, the articulation on both of them seems to work really nicely, really smooth. Definitely allows for some very cool posability for the figures, which is always one of the main appeals of the Beasts of the Mesozoic. On top of that, the sculpts are as highly detailed as you are going to find no matter what size range you are looking at a Velociraptor figure in. These sculpts are fantastic and super highly detailed, also very crisp and impressive, just generally how good the detail looks. And if you take that into consideration and look at it when it comes to the size aspect of these figures, I think it just really shows how impressive they are, because the detailing on these would look amazing in a large, 1-to-1 scale model pretty much, but they look just as impressive here on the smaller 1/18th scale versions, which again shows you how good the actual detailing aspect is for something like this considering its size. And when you take into consideration their size, how impressive the paintwork is, because the paintwork looks great on both of them. Really nice naturalistic, in my opinion, paint schemes, but considering how small these figures are and how good the actual paint apps look, that really is quite mind-blowing. They are very impressive when it comes to how good the transitions are, how good the actual dry brushing, and even just for one instance, if you really want to look at these figures to find one of the more impressive areas of paint application, I would say look at the Velociraptor osmolskae in the face and look at how nice and precise that paintwork is. Man, that is just beyond impressive if you ask me. So again, two absolutely awesome 1/18th scale Raptors. Definitely hoping to see more of this in the future. I would love to see the Beasts of the Mesozoic again releasing more raptor species that they've released in the past in this scale, and definitely again two absolutely epic figures to add to my collection. So if you are interested in grabbing these, I will include links in the description to where you can purchase both of these on the Creative Beast Studio website. So make sure you check those links, go grab these Raptors, and comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.